Hello and welcome. So, I am both really excited and a little nervous actually to talk about this. I'm going to do quite a different sort of video. So, if you follow me for some time, this is a bit different to what you'd normally expect. And if you're new here, hello and welcome. And yeah, so today, what I wanted to talk a little bit more about was working with the planets. So that's a really broad topic, but I kind of want to talk about it in a more specific way, and I might even do a series on this. But something that, again, if you follow me for some time, obviously you know I do readings around the planets and astrology of the week, and that is in a way working with the planets, right? We're aligning ourselves to the planetary energies and working with them rather than ignoring them and not knowing what's going on and that kind of thing. So I kind of want to go a little bit deeper into like my own practice working with the planets, and something that I really believe in as well as a magician. So that's kind of more the side of it I want to get into, which is maybe why I'm a bit nervous because talking about magic openly is still a little nerve-wracking for me. So anyway, so what I wanted to talk about here was more like so something I like to do beyond sort of understanding what you might call, let's say, the astrological weather, right? So that is working with the planets, like we do here on this channel. But I also work with the planets and as deities. So I think of all of the planets as gods, and I work with them as such. And this is really more if I want to kind of uh, it's what you call like natural magic when you're working with planets, and it's also results magic if you're trying to sort of manifest more things in your life that a certain planetary deity represents. So let's say, for example, like you wanted to bring in more love into your life. A really common planet people work with is Venus, because Venus is the planet of love, of art, of beauty, all these kinds of things. But the bit I really want to get into specifically is more around like, well, okay, so let's say you've decided I want to work with the planets to help manifest certain things into my life. I'll work with Venus for love, I'll work with Mars for courage, I'll work with Jupiter for wealth, like whatever it might be. The thing that often gets kind of missed is that the gods are gods. And it's our job first as etiquette to create a relationship with them. So this is a huge part of my practice, and it's something that I want to get into more depth with here. So if you've done this kind of magic before, some of this will be familiar to you already, but I'll kind of assume that maybe you haven't, just in case you haven't and you want to understand this a little bit more. That a big part of working with the planets is, yeah, building a relationship first. So I like to think of the planets as gods and gods as beings. And if imagine if you were like, you have a friend and you haven't spoken to them for ages, and then suddenly you're like, hey, could you give me like £1,000? They might be a little bit like, well, I don't know you, who are you? I don't really want to give you that. Whereas if you'd been sort of like cultivating a relationship with this person over time, and you were giving them things and you were recognizing things, it's not just about gift giving, although that is a big part of offerings, which is really the subject of this video, but it's more just that relationship building. And I think like this is something that really gets missed, and I want to talk about what relationship building actually means and what that looks like in real life with people and with gods, right? So let's talk about it in terms of the planets. So when working with the planets, it's like you want something from them, but they don't know you at all. And I find that when you try and do that and you're just like, give me this, they're not very receptive, just like a person wouldn't be. So how do we build relationships with the planets? Well, the first thing that I would do is I would understand what each of the planets represent. So the planets that I work with are the 7 sort of inner planets. I don't work with the outer planets so much for this kind of magic. I work with like the moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn, and the sun as well. I actually don't work a lot with the sun, but the sun is also counts as a planet, even though I know technically the sun is not a planet. But in this sort of realm, we consider him a planet. So understanding what each of these deities are about, what they bring, what their gifts are, what they represent, that in and of itself is an offering to sort of read up about these deities. So that's something that, first of all, you might want to understand first before deciding which ones you want to work with, depending on what it is that you're trying to bring into your own life. So again, if you know that relationships is a tricky area for you, then probably working with Venus would be a really great starting point. Now, I will say that there are certain things that you can want to manifest that all of the planets can help you with, but they'll do it in their own way. So, like for instance, with money, all of the planets actually have their own way of helping you manifest more money, but they will do it in a way that is their flavor. So again, sort of kind of trying to understand each of what they do. So that's kind of probably for a different video, which what all the planets kind of represent. But I'll sort of come up with examples as we're talking here. So in terms of offerings, yeah, so what I like to do is once I understand what each of the planets are about and what they like, then I start to just give them offerings throughout the day. So for instance, like I understand that Venus, again, if it's like more about relationships and beauty and art, I'm also a very creative person, so I work with Venus a lot for that side of things. She really enjoys sweet things. She enjoys pleasure. She enjoys beauty. So something I do on a regular basis is like it's probably no surprise that I wear makeup. I take care of my physical appearance, and as I'm doing this, so to get really granular, like this is actually how I do it. As I am putting on my makeup, as I am making myself look nice, right? I say with my words out loud, and I think this is also really helpful with offerings to speak them out loud because it's a spell, right? Our words are spells. To say, like, this is my offering to you, Venus. I want to make myself look beautiful as an offering to you. Because I love you, I adore you. Like, again, like they're gods. We want to speak to them with reverence. Like, I admire you so much and I love you so much that this is what I want to do for you. So that's the kind of thing that I would do as an offering. Now, there are different kinds of offerings. You can have like physical offerings. So that's like quite traditional in magic to kind of have like food or drink, and to understand which planets like which different foods. So again, Venus, it's sweet things, it's honey, it's like vanilla, it's those kind of scents as well. You could be burning those scents as a offering. Chocolate, that kind of thing for Venus. Whereas if it's Mars, he's heat, he's fire, so things that are spicy, things that are kind of like, you know, like you might use cinnamon or chili, and like putting that on fruits. Fruits is a really big thing in offerings as well, giving the gods fruits. But again, like you don't have to do it in that way, but it's just sort of like as a form of respect, you can you probably could technically give anything as an offering, but just like a friend, if you understood that friend better, and let's say they were like, oh, I really hate like spicy food, but then you give them spicy food, it's a bit like, well, that's not really considered me in that. So that's why it's like helpful to understand what each of the planets like as an offering. And some planets are a little bit more physical. Venus and Mars are very physical planets, whereas things like Saturn, I don't tend to give Saturn too much physical stuff. Like you can, he does have things like I think he's a big fan of like fermented food. So like kimchi, sauerkraut is like really good for Saturn. I tend not to give offerings like that to Saturn. He's the planet of restriction, of boundaries, of discipline. So for me, the offerings come more in the form of like, I am going to look at, like, I'm going to get an Excel spreadsheet and sort out my money. And as I'm doing that, it's like, this is an offering to Saturn, because Saturn wants you to organize things. Saturn wants you to like get clear on the numbers and not bury your head in the sand. Like, so that would be a really good offering to Saturn. Saturn is also very black and inky. So, like, for instance, my nails are black. That's an offering to Saturn. But that could also be an offering to Venus, because Venus is the planet of like making yourself look pretty, and painting your nails is a very Venusian thing. So it's kind of like when I painted my nails, I was thinking of both Venus and Saturn at the same time, but for different reasons. So for Venus, it was more like, yeah, this is an offering to make an effort with my appearance, to actually try. And for Saturn, it was like, I'm going to wear black because black kind of reminds me of you, your inky, dark sort of Saturnian energy. So these are kind of like some examples of offerings. So what I like to do is like, yeah, you can either like understand each of the deities and what foods and drinks they like and give them offerings, and you can make an altar and put that on your altar for as long as you like. Obviously, if it's food and things, I tend to remove it before it's gone off, or like as it's sort of starting to turn. So you could have an altar that's specifically for a deity. Like I have a Venus altar, like here, you can't see it, but it's right there, where I have like Venusian things. So like rose quartz on there. I have money on there as well that I've drawn a sigil on. That again, I won't get specific into all of the things. I also have actually like my nail thing that I do put, what do you call it? Like it's the thing that you make your nails look good with. I put it actually on the altar because it really like Venus rules like salons, so it really gives me like salon like energy. So it's on my altar. I also have some chocolate on there. So I love working with Venus. I also dyed my hair pink as an ode to Venus, because even though Venus actually is associated with the color green, I personally really associate Venus with pink. So this is where the nuance comes in, right? Each planet does have their own sort of like, Mercury is orange, Venus is green, Saturn is black, Jupiter is like a blue, like a dark blue and gold. I can't remember which was I mentioned. Yes, Sun is yellow, Mars is red. So they have like their own colors, but I work with Venus that much that I really feel more connection to the pink, and I feel like she recognizes that and doesn't see it as like, nope, you've misunderstood me, like, so go away. Like she's not upset about me. So I use pink as an ode to Venus. So yeah. So these are just some of the ideas you could do. So you could do physical offerings. And yeah, what I really like to do, and I do probably do this more, is because it's easier for me to remember to do it, is to think about all of the actions that I'm going to do that day and how that could be an offering to said planet. So again, like for the moon, for example, the moon, this could also be Venus, but the moon is really like a way to honor the moon would be to really take pleasure in something that you're doing. So every time I sit down to eat, what I try and do is really enjoy what I'm eating, like take a moment to really enjoy it. And as I'm doing it, once again, I say out loud, like, this is my offering to the moon. I'm going to enjoy this with so much pleasure, and I hope that this is something that you can receive. It's that kind of thing. Because I know that the moon really wants me to enjoy my life. The moon is the mother. The moon wants me to just like enjoy everything. So my offering is to enjoy it rather than just to like scoff it down as I'm scrolling on my phone or whatever. Don't get me wrong, that will happen sometimes. But where possible, I'm like, right, that could be my offering to the moon. As an example. And again, Venus is very pleasure oriented, so it could be a Venusian offer. But again, once you understand these deities, you'll know what feels more true for you. For me, the moon is more like relevant for me. That feels more true. I work with Venus in different ways. So I start to look at my life and I think, how could this be an offering? And sometimes they'll cross over. Like I said, like with the nails, that can be Venus or Saturn. Probably could be other things as well. But to me, it feels like both of those. When I go out for my walk, I think of that as quite a Saturn thing, because it's like I'm having the discipline to go out for my daily walk, even when I don't always want to show up, even when I don't always want to do it. It's like, but Saturn wants me to keep showing up, to commit to something on a daily basis, or regular basis at least, not necessarily daily, but So I think of that as my offering to Saturn. But to somebody else, that might be a moon offering, like a pleasurable thing. So yeah, but the point here is start, like a really great way to build your relationship with these planets is to first of all understand what kind of things they really want from you, right? That's a big part. Like, what do they want? The moon wants me to have pleasure. Saturn wants me to have discipline. Venus wants me to be more beautiful. Well, that's maybe not quite accurate to say, but Venus wants you to delight in things and to make things more beautiful. That's more accurate. So again, like cleaning your house could be an offering to Venus, right? Because like it's beautifying your space, or like, but in a way where you're adding more, like, you know, candles and flowers and these kinds of things. It's very Venusian, like especially if it's pink roses that you're adding. It's like, that's so Venus. Right? And you could be like, this is my offering to you because I love you. So that kind of thing. So understanding what the planets look for. Mercury, I find, like really enjoys, Mercury is a tricky one. Not tricky in a bad way, but like it's a funny one because Mercury is the element of air. So air is like, you know, doing breath work. It could be a really good offering for Mercury. So I do breath work every day, and I'm always like, this is my offering to Mercury, Hermes, Thoth. And like also offering to Mercury is like being in windy places and just like taking that in. That's like an offering to Mercury. But again, I think of it more as like, Mercury is a trickster. Mercury is a shapeshifter. So being kind of like shapeshifty, and like, if I like embodying the energy of like trickster energy is very mercurial. Using my voice is very mercurial. This right now is quite Mercurial. Using technology, which is Mercury. So doing a video, speaking, using my words. I called upon Mercury to do this video. I can feel his energy very much. So that would be like a really good mercurial offer, is to use your words and that kind of thing. So yeah, so you can see how easy it is actually. Like, you might be like, oh, I don't know how to do offerings or whatever. It's like, just today alone, I've like done several, because each thing kind of corresponds to a planet. Like whatever it is that I'm about to do, whether it's doing something that's kind of like boring but helpful, that would be Saturn. um, Making things beautiful, that would be Venus. Making good food and enjoying it, that would be the moon. The moon is also like very food oriented. Um, Jupiter would be like seeing the abundance that is all around, and like seeing the good, being jovial, being joyous, being generous. I love, like, when I'm really in Jupiter energy, it feels great. Because it's just like being really generous with, like, again, this could be a bit Jupiterian what I'm doing here, like being generous with my words, right? So yeah, you can start to see how easy it is to make offerings. And the difference is that you're just creating the intention around what you're doing as being an offering. And then the planets receive that as like, they've understood what it is I want for you, because I love you as well. And I want more things, good things for you. They recognize that. And then when it comes to the time to then actually work with them, like say you want to do a ritual with them, you've already developed a relationship. Like have a relationship with these beings, because they start like communicating with you and start sort of like entering your world, and you start feeling their presence in places, and it's really interesting. And then at that point, when you want to then sort of call something in, it's like asking a really close friend, like, oh, could you help me out with this? And they're like, yeah, of course, because I know you and we have a bond, and like, this is great. So all of that is to say, I'm a huge fan of building relationships first. Just like in real life, we have to do this if we want. Going in cold is just a bit like, whoa. Like, no one's that receptive when they don't know you, and the gods are the same. So starting that as your practice in and of itself, without doing rituals, I think they do give you so much back, just because they are so grateful for your recognition of their power and how grateful you are to them, without needing anything from them. Just like, I'm going to do this because I want to, because I recognize you and I see you and I acknowledge you, and I want you to just be recognized because you're a god. You know. And that already, without doing ritual, brings in so much amazing stuff. So I cannot recommend this enough. And I hope this has been helpful. Yeah, and given you a little bit of a start of like how to do offerings, how to think about them, and where to start if this is something that really appeals to you in terms of working with the planets beyond the astrological weather. If you want to go a little bit deeper into how to really bring them into your day-to-day life, this is a fantastic way to do that. So yeah, so I'll probably leave it there. Thank you so much for watching that. Please do let me know if you have any more questions. I know there's probably so much more I could have said. So let me know if there's anything you wanted me to elaborate on or anything that wasn't clear. Anything like that, because I know this is a huge topic and it's something I feel so passionately about. And let me know if you enjoyed it. I know it's a little bit different to what I normally do. So yeah, as always, leaving comments, letting me know, all of that stuff. And if you have liked it, of course, liking the video is also really helpful. And subscribing if you've enjoyed that and you're not already a subscriber really helps support the channel. So thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you all on the next one. Mwah!